I'm Katie Couric. A blast of winter in the heart of America. Heavy snow and strong winds, freezing rain and frigid temperatures mean canceled flights and dangerous travel in the Midwest. And it's all heading east tonight. In the Far East, a groundbreaking deal could end the North Korean nuclear threat. We'll take a look at the promise and potential pitfalls. In a Salt Lake City mall, a teenager guns down 5 people in a matter of seconds. And officials say if it weren't for a hero cop, the toll could have been much higher. And is the food your family's eating safe? And is the government doing enough? A special series begins tonight.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hi, everyone. That big winter storm we warned you about is making a huge mess tonight in 30 states. The radar map shows just how huge this system is. The South is getting hammered by heavy rains and thunderstorms. In the Midwest, it's a blizzard, and it's heading east. Already more than 1,000 flights have been canceled. Indiana and Ohio may get more than 1.5 feet of snow. And in Washington, D.C., federal government offices closed early because of icy conditions. Cynthia Bowers is in the very windy city tonight. And Cynthia, it looks like a real weather nightmare out there.
Katie, it is a nightmare. This comes just as we were finally thawing out from last week's deep freeze. Old man winter sucked us sideways today, knocking pedestrians in Chicago's loop for a loop. What do you think about today's weather?
Oh, it's awful. Can't get much worse than this.
It isn't the ½ foot of snow here or even the 10 inches in western Indiana. That just makes things messy. It's the wind howling across the Midwest at 40 miles an hour. That turned a simple snowstorm into a blizzard, very nearly bringing one of the nation's busiest airports to a standstill. More than 750 flights into and out of O'Hare were canceled, which in turn cripples air traffic from coast to coast. O'Hare may be back to normal tomorrow, but airports to the east are in the storm's path. You two actually believe you're going to make it up in the air today?
They just said that.
If we're supposed to, we will. If not, I'm going to do my yoga.
Snowplow drivers like this guy near Columbus, Ohio, might go for that. Up to 20 inches of snow will have him going in circles around the clock.
I think that's time you make your round and do the second lane. The first lane you did is already covered.
You knew this storm was bad, even by hardy Midwestern standards, when the University of Illinois gave its 30,000 students a snow day for the first time in nearly 30 years. It doesn't look like it right now in this 40-mile-per-hour wind, but believe it or not, in the Midwest, the worst of it is over. We only got about a foot of snow, but in the east, you guys could be getting 2 feet. So get your snow shovels ready, Katie.
All right, looking forward to it, I think. Cynthia Bowers. Cynthia, thank you. That same storm system unleashed a tornado in New Orleans early this morning. The results there were tragic. Dozens of homes were flattened. 29 people were hurt. There was at least 1 death. 85-year-old Stella Chambers was almost ready to move back into her New Orleans home, which had just been rebuilt after Hurricane Katrina. The tornado ripped apart her FEMA trailer, though, killing her. The major development overseas tonight, North Korea's agreement to start dismantling its nuclear weapons program in exchange for $300 million in aid. Barry Peterson has details of the deal that could put an end to the North Korean nuclear threat.
It was a deal sealed in Beijing with a round of applause, celebratory handshakes, and a U.S. olive branch offered to a longtime enemy.
As they denuclearize, we want to see if we can help them, especially to help a very impoverished and people who are living very difficult lives.
North Korea agreed to shut down its nuclear reactor in exchange for oil and electricity. But what may be more telling is what the deal doesn't do. Inspectors can check out that nuclear reactor, but there's no reference to a uranium enrichment program that could be making weapons-grade material. And left for the future is a discussion of nuclear programs that may be hidden and scattered across the North. And here's the tough one. North Korea exploded a nuclear device last October, but the actual dismantling of North Korea's nuclear weapons is left for sometime later. So is finding North Korea's stash of plutonium enough, say some, to make a dozen nuclear bombs? The agreement is a tentative but vital first step, say those worried about North Korea sharing its nuclear knowledge.
We want to stop proliferation. That's the most dangerous thing. If they get that weaponry in the hands of Al-Qaeda or rogue states, that is very, very dangerous.
Finally, the biggest reason to be skeptical, North Korea's Kim Jong-il. Ready to honor this deal? Maybe. But as this unpredictable leader has shown over and over, if his mood changes next month or next year, he may be just as ready to torpedo it. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Tokyo.
For more on the North Korea deal, we turn to our chief White House correspondent, Jim Axelrod. Jim, this has to be good news for an administration that hasn't had too many foreign policy achievements to trumpet lately.
Well, Katie, no one is popping any champagne corks yet, precisely for the reason Barry Peterson just pointed out, the unpredictability of Kim Jong-il. In fact, the Bush administration's former UN ambassador, John Bolton, says it's a bad deal, rewarding North Korea for bad behavior. So I suppose, Katie, we'll find out over the next 60 days or so what, if anything, there is to celebrate.
And Jim, do White House officials see any lesson here on how to deal with that other member of the so-called axis of evil, Iran?
Well, what the White House says is North Korea points up what happens when a group of countries with shared interests bands together and practices strong unified diplomacy. But North Korea had every reason, every incentive to come to the table, the electricity and the oil it so badly needs. Iran's in a far different economic position, requiring far less from the outside world. Katie.
All right, Jim Axelrod reporting from the White House. Also in Washington, the House began its long-awaited debate on a resolution opposing the president's troop buildup in Iraq. It's a symbolic resolution. It wouldn't force the president to change his strategy, but it could go a long way towards shaping Iraq policy in the future. Cheryl Atkinson reports now from Capitol Hill.
The ice storm shut down most of the federal government this afternoon, but it didn't stop the historic debate in the House over President Bush's Iraq policy.
The American people have lost faith in President Bush's course of action in Iraq, and they are demanding a new direction.
We have a duty to pursue nothing less than victory.
The resolution they're debating is just 97 words long and purely symbolic. Even as it disapproves of the president's troop increase, it also promises that Congress will continue to support and protect the troops. All 435 members get 5 minutes each to have their say, and the resolution will likely pass by Friday. The only real question is how many Republicans will vote for it. The split in the party is personified by 2 Vietnam War veterans in Congress. Representative Sam Johnson was freed 34 years ago today after being held in a Vietnamese prison camp for 7 years. Back then, he says, he made a promise.
That I would fight to ensure America never lets our troops down in harm's way again.
He believes that's exactly what this resolution would do, let down the troops. But Representative Wayne Gilchrist, who was wounded in Vietnam...
How old were you there?
I was 20.
He'll be siding with Democrats in voting for the resolution.
And those soldiers in Iraq who may have felt that they're forgotten when we debate a lot of other trivial things will know that they're not forgotten this week, and they'll appreciate this debate, and I think most of them will appreciate this vote.
The House Iraq resolution is so simple that today the leader of the Senate said he may use it as a roadmap to revive the issue there, where more complex Iraq resolutions were never brought to a vote. Katie?
Cheryl Atkinson, thank you. The radical Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr apparently is taking the U.S. troop buildup very seriously. CBS News has learned that, fearing for his safety, he has quietly left for Iran. U.S. officials say he made the move some weeks ago and has not been seen in Iraq since. Back here in the United States, the people of Salt Lake City are coping with an all-too-familiar tragedy. A teenage gunman who randomly opened fire in a place we all think is safe. This time it was the Trolley Square Mall, and as bad as it was, it could have been much worse. Sandra Hughes reports.
They came to shop, but found themselves face to face with a killer.
I looked down and I saw the silhouette of the guy, and he looked up and he shot at me twice, and one of them just grazed my head.
Police say an 18-year-old dressed Columbine style in a trench coat, armed with 2 guns and a backpack full of ammo, stormed a downtown Salt Lake City mall on a mission to murder.
People were running, pushing chairs down. My husband pushed my daughter and I underneath the table, and then he told us to run because it was shotgun, and so we ran.
Okay, we'll take them both. In just 6 terrifying minutes, it was over. Police say Salaman Talovic, a young Bosnian living in Salt Lake City, killed 5 and injured 4 others. He tried to shoot more, but was stopped by an off-duty police officer from Ogden, Utah. 6-year veteran Ken Hammond, who happened to be at the mall with his wife.
There is no question that his quick actions saved the lives of numerous other people.
Police say they have no motive for the rampage, that Talovic had some minor juvenile offenses. And CBS News has learned he dropped out of the Salt Lake City public school system in November 2004. The young man apparently lived here with his mother.
He was such a good boy, and didn't know what happened.
His intent was to shoot as many people as he possibly could.
Instead, Talovic died in a gun battle with police, leaving an entire community wondering why. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Los Angeles.
We've got much more news ahead. Coming up next, CBS News in Focus, what the government is and isn't doing to make sure the food your family's eating is safe. And much of our food relies on them, but they're disappearing. A bee mystery later. CBS News in Focus. Tonight, food safety. A CBS News poll finds only 15% of Americans have a great deal of confidence in the government's ability to protect us from bad food. It was just a few months ago that tainted spinach was blamed for an E. coli outbreak that killed at least 3 people and made nearly 200 others sick in 26 states. And more than 80 people got sick after eating at taco restaurants in the Midwest. Those cases were linked to contaminated lettuce. Tonight, Wyatt Andrews begins our series that asks, is our food safe enough to eat?
Last September, after eating tainted spinach, Lisa Brott, a dedicated fitness buff at age 50, found herself hemorrhaging blood.
I was very critical for several days where I was in the ICU.
You're describing essentially kidney failure.
Yes.
She was in the hospital for 13 days
blood transfusions
with her organs shutting down.
What do you think it says that someone in the shape you were in got as sick as you got?
What it says is that the E. coli is a very aggressive, dangerous bacteria.
An E. coli outbreak.
After E. coli in produce caused 2 huge outbreaks last fall, you might think the federal agency in charge would have a prevention plan by now. You'd be wrong, and here's why.
No one's in charge in the federal food safety system.
Mike Taylor, a former USDA and FDA official, says the nation's food safety system is broken. A hodgepodge where USDA inspects meat, but FDA inspects milk. The USDA regulates chickens, but when a chicken lays an egg, that's the FDA. The EPA regulates pesticides in food. The CDC and National Marine Fisheries are involved. All told, 12 federal agencies have a role in food safety. Worse, Taylor says most food safety money, 80%, goes to the USDA, which visually inspects meat in slaughterhouses, while millions of Americans actually get sick from the invisible germs in produce.
So the amount of money we spend has nothing to do with who's getting sick?
The basic allocation has nothing to do with who's getting sick, and it's out of proportion to where the actual risks are in the food supply.
Over the last 10 years, Congress has been warned again and again the food safety system was an organizational mess that was not fully protecting consumers. But the spinach outbreak has led to new demands for reform. One idea is to create a single food agency to finally put someone in charge.
Do you think a single agency would have caught the last spinach outbreak?
I think they would have traced it more quickly.
The second-ranking Democrat in the Senate, Dick Durbin, says under one agency, money could be focused on disease prevention.
When you consider 75 million Americans with foodborne illnesses each year, I do believe that a better, more modern, streamlined agency would reduce those numbers, and it means that more people would survive.
That's outrageous that this many people are poisoned by food.
Lisa Brott calls it unacceptable that Congress has tolerated so many sick Americans.
A lot more has to be done, whatever it takes, to protect people's health.
One casualty of last fall's outbreak was consumer confidence in fresh food. too many Americans like Lisa ate their greens and paid for it with a trip to the hospital. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Brookfield, Wisconsin.
Senator Durbin will introduce a bill tomorrow that would bring all food safety under a single agency. As our series continues, tomorrow morning, the early show looks at food allergies that can make your own kitchen a minefield. And tomorrow evening, we'll go to California, where farmers are working overtime to prevent another E. coli outbreak. If you'd like to know what you can do to make sure your food is safe, just go to cbsnews.com and click on FYI. And coming up next tonight, can a Mormon be elected president of the United States? Starting today, Mitt Romney is hoping the answer is yes. Mitt Romney officially announced today that he's running for the Republican presidential nomination. But apparently many people are asking, Mitt who? A new CBS News poll found that 72% of Americans haven't heard enough about the former governor of Massachusetts to form an opinion. Then there's the issue of his religion. Romney is Mormon, and that, according to national political correspondent Gloria Borger, may prove to be an obstacle as he embarks on his campaign.
Mitt Romney is far from a household name.
I declare my intention to run for president of the
But his
United
presidential bid has been years in the making. The political resume is impressive. A former Republican governor of the very Democratic Massachusetts, where he passed a universal health care plan. And the man credited with saving the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics, who is also telegenic. But there's a personal matter that could dog his campaign, his membership in the Mormon Church, something Romney tried to demystify today.
States. And every person on this great planet is a child of God. I believe that we're all sisters and brothers.
But to many Americans, the Mormon Church is an unknown, shrouded in secrecy and stereotype dating back more than a century, when Mormons were allowed to have multiple wives.
People don't know much about Mormonism. A lot of Christian conservatives don't like what they know, and this is going to be a mountain for him to climb.
A CBS News poll shows that most Americans don't know enough about the religion to have an opinion, yet more than 2/3 say they could vote for a qualified Mormon. Senator Orrin Hatch, a Romney friend and Mormon who once ran for president himself, says Romney fits the bill.
Here's a guy that his religion has made him what he is, perhaps. But he's gone way beyond that in doing what is right for his fellow men and women.
Romney is running to the right as a conservative Republican. He once supported abortion rights, but has now changed his mind.
I think as long as candidates are willing to say up front, you know, this is what I believe in, or this is why I've changed my mind on a certain issue, people will take them at face value.
And one more thing, Katie, Orrin Hatch isn't the only Mormon in Congress. There are 15, and that includes Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid.
All right, Gloria Borger reporting tonight from Washington. Thank you, Gloria. Coming up next, the mysterious case of the disappearing bees, how it affects you. And believe us, it does. Well, it turns out a lot of bees are not flying. Millions of honeybees in 22 states have disappeared, and no one knows why. If you're wondering why you should care, fully 1/3 of our food supply depends on them. Here's John Blackstone.
In spite of all the advances in agriculture, honeybees remain indispensable, moving pollen from flower to flower. For many crops, bees are the only efficient way to pollinate. So as growing season begins in California's Central Valley, there's nothing quite as busy as a beekeeper. Farmers pay them to put hives in their fields and orchards. You guys are essential. You're essential to them.
Right.
The bees are essential.
Yeah, it means the difference between profit and loss to them.
But beekeepers like Lance Sundberg have a mystery in their hives this year. Bees are disappearing at an alarming rate.
Colonies are going down. The bees aren't dead in the box or out front. They just disappear. They just vanish. There's a good one.
Jerry Bromenshank is leading a team of bee researchers looking for a cause, even listening to hives for signs of distress. Beekeepers in 22 states have reported bees dying in huge numbers.
We're trying to put 2 and 2 or 2 and 3 together and find a common thread, and nothing's quite obvious at this point.
Jeff Pettis of the U.S. Department of Agriculture says parasites and disease have killed bees in the past, but they don't know what's causing this or how to stop it.
We went through multiple hives, and we couldn't find anything that I would even call a beehive. So it was depressing.
Part of the mystery is that colonies can go from active and healthy to dead and gone within days. For beekeepers, that's a loss that stings.
Disappeared. There's nothing there. There's no bees on the ground anywhere. There's just a completely empty hive.
In just a few weeks, Louise Rosberg has seen hundreds of her hives go empty.
I don't know what to do. And I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
For now, plenty of beekeepers are stacking up silent and empty hives. But scientists are working hard to find the cause and a cure for what is ailing the bees. After all the bees do for us, it's the least we can do for them. John Blackstone, CBS News, Oakdale, California.
Strange. That's the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.